Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have one of Hollywood's most famous actors ever, James Dean. He was Hollywood's bad boy, but he also had a passion for fast cars. On September 30th, 1955, when he was just 24 years old, he was speeding in his Porsche 550 Spyder when he unfortunately crashed into another car traveling the opposite direction and lost his life. When he died, he had only filmed 3 movies, 2 of which hadn't even been released yet. It's really sad to think about how much potential and how much more life he had to live before it was tragically cut short. To make this already dark moment a little creepier, just 7 days before his death, James met with celebrated actor Alec Guinness to show off his new car. Alec then told James, "If you get in that car, you'll be found dead in it by next week." In our number 9 spot, we've got the tragic murder of comedy legend Phil Hartman. Before I dive into this one, guys, make sure you hit that thumbs up if you're enjoying the video so far. In May of 1998, Phil and his wife Bryn got into a fiery argument about Bryn's repeated drug use. Apparently the argument was so bad that Phil told her he would leave her if she didn't stop using drugs. After the fight, Phil went to their bedroom to sleep, but Bryn had a pretty worrisome mix of substances in her system. She was drinking alcohol, taking Zoloft, which is an antidepressant, and had also ingested cocaine. In her intoxicated state, she ended up grabbing a gun, went into the bedroom where Phil was sleeping, and shot him 3 times, killing him. Bryn then drove to her friend Ronald Douglas's house and confessed to killing her husband. Of course, Ronald's initial reaction was disbelief, so the pair drove back to the house, but in separate cars. On the drive back, Bryn called another friend and confessed again. When the two arrived back at the house, Ron saw the body of Phil and immediately called 911. When the police arrived, they were escorting Ron and the 2 children of Phil and Bryn out of the house when Bryn locked herself in a bedroom in the house where she ended up committing suicide. It's a pretty tragic end to what was already a dark and upsetting story. In our number 8 spot, we've got the story of Carl Switzer. Carl was a child actor who got his start in the 1930s. By the time he was an adult, he had swapped out most of his acting for a more low-key lifestyle as a dog trainer and breeder. In 1959, Carl had agreed to train a hunting dog for a man named Moses Samuel Stilts. After the dog ran off and got lost, Carl offered a $35 reward to anyone who could find the dog and bring him back. When someone finally found the dog, Carl gave him the $35 and bought him $15 worth of drinks to say thank you. Several days later, Carl and his friend Jack Pyatt decided that Moses should have been the one to pay for the reward and went to the home he was staying at to confront him. One thing led to another and Moses ended up shooting Carl. Carl's death was on the same day as legendary director Cecil B. DeMille, so it ended up getting greatly overshadowed in the news and tabloids. Based on Moses' testimony, he was never convicted of the murder and it was ruled as an act of self-defense. But in a turn of events, 42 years later, on January 25th, 2001, a man named Tom Corrigan, who was Moses' stepson, decided to come forward about the true events of that night. Tom revealed that the story Moses had painted wasn't exactly true, and Tom even said, "It was more like murder." I'm not sure why it took him so long to come out with the truth, but I'm sure it would have been pretty scary for him to have been holding on to that for all those years. Coming in at number 7, we have the unsolved murder of William Desmond Taylor. William was one of the most successful silent film directors of the 1910s and the 20s. During his height as a director, the industry was beginning to shift from silent films into talking pictures, which were called talkies. On February 2nd, 1922, William was found dead inside his apartment. Because of the times and the fact that crime scene preservation didn't really exist yet, a large crowd gathered inside his home to look at the scene and the body. Someone who claimed they were a doctor stepped forward and began to examine the body before claiming that William had died from a stomach hemorrhage. When the real authorities arrived, this doctor had already disappeared and the investigation began. Authorities rolled over the body of William only to find that he had actually been shot in the back twice, which is what really caused his death. Did that supposed doctor have anything to do with the murder, or was he just really terrible at his job? Let me know what you guys think. When William was found, he still had cash in his wallet as well as other valuable items, so robbery didn't really seem to be the motive in this case. There were many suspects in the case, but because of lack of evidence and crime scene contamination, this case has been cold for almost a full century. I wonder if we'll ever really know what happened to William. Moving on to number 6, we have the story of 28-year-old actor Johnny Lewis. In 2012, Johnny was found dead at the home of his landlord, 81-year-old Catherine Davis. Police were called to the home after a few people who were at the home next door had been attacked by Johnny and then heard Catherine screaming next door. When police arrived, they found Johnny dead in the driveway, as well as Catherine and her cat, both dead inside the home. The investigation concluded that Johnny had killed Catherine's cat and then Catherine, and then climbed up onto the roof where he ended up falling to his death. A toxicology report showed that there were no drugs or alcohol in his system at the time of the death, which really leaves us with the question as to why this all happened. How does a seemingly normal guy just suddenly commit such an atrocious crime? While we will never know for sure, it is said that Johnny had a head injury that went untreated, so it is possible that this led to some kind of psychological disorder that could lead to extremely violent and angry outbursts. Coming in at our number 5 spot, we have a story about Loretta Young. In 1935, Clark Gable and Loretta Young were co-stars on the movie The Call of the Wild. They ended up having some sort of fling which left Loretta pregnant. Because of the times and the fact that they were unwed, this of course would have caused a major scandal. Loretta ended up leaving the country for what they called an extended holiday for the rest of her pregnancy. After the baby was born, she dropped it off at an orphanage, only to return sometime later and adopt what was actually her biological child. While she maintained the story that her daughter was adopted, as the child grew, she inherited her father's famous distinctive ears, which led to the public finding out about the truth. This is a dark Hollywood moment because it's just really upsetting that a woman had to jump through all of those hoops in order to be able to lead a successful career and also raise her child. In our number 4 spot today, we have the death of Thelma Todd. Thelma was an extremely talented comedic actor who ended up dying from carbon monoxide poisoning. On the night of her death, Thelma was out with friends for an evening on the town. Around 2 a.m., her driver dropped her off at her cafe where she lived in the above apartment. Thelma realized she was locked out, so she began to walk to her business partner and lover, Ronald West's house, which was just up the road. She went down into the garage and sat in a car, and little is known about what happened after. The next morning, her longtime maid came down into the garage to grab Thelma's car for her, which was their regular morning routine, but instead she tragically found Thelma slumped over in the driver's seat. The death was ruled an accident, and it is said that she turned the car on to warm up, but with the garage doors closed, she ended up accidentally poisoning herself and passed out at the wheel. Thelma was 29 years old at the time and was at the peak of her career, so seems pretty unlikely. She had no marks on her body except for a bruise on her lip, which is said to have been from hitting her face on the steering wheel. There's a lot of speculation that Ronald was involved in her death, and some say he even confessed to it on his deathbed, but all of these claims have never been proven. Coming in at number 3, we have the stabbing death of Johnny Stompanato. In 1958, Johnny was found dead in famous actress Lana Turner's home. Lana's 14-year-old daughter Cheryl confessed to stabbing him, saying that he had attacked her mom after an argument the two were having. While the courts ruled that the killing was justified, this did not stop rumors from swirling about what people speculated really happened. The most common was that Lana had actually murdered her boyfriend, but her daughter took the fall since the court wouldn't be as harsh on a minor. But in a darker, even more upsetting rumor, people claimed that Lana had caught Johnny and her daughter in bed, which led her to kill him, and then made her daughter take the blame. I don't think that this version is true, or at least I really hope it isn't, but I obviously wasn't there, so anything is possible. In our number 2 spot, we have the story of Sid Vicious. Sid, whose real name is John Simon Ritchie, was a bassist and singer for the most famous British rock band, the Pistols. On October 12, 1978, an employee of the Chelsea Hotel got a mysterious phone call which alerted them to trouble in room 100. When authorities arrived to the room, they found Sid, who was extremely high on drugs, and Sid's girlfriend at the time, Nancy Spungen, dead in the bathroom from a stab wound to the stomach. Sid was subsequently arrested and charged with Nancy's murder. 10 days after this incident, Sid attempted which led him to getting sent to the Bellevue Hospital, where he later tried to commit again. He tried to jump out of a window, yelling something like, "I want to be with my Nancy," before being pulled back inside by hospital staff. On February 1st, 1979, almost 4 months after Nancy's death, Sid ended up overdosing on His friends actually ended up reviving him, but he passed away the next morning. After his death, his mother said that she found a note in his pocket that read, "We had a death pact, and I have to keep my end of the bargain. Please bury me next to my baby. Bury me in my leather jacket, jeans, and motorcycle boots. Goodbye." Sadly, this note wasn't found until after he had already been cremated, but even if it was found earlier, Nancy had been buried in a Jewish cemetery and Sid wouldn't have been allowed to be buried there. It is still unclear what happened that night that Nancy died. Some theories include that a drug dealer had done it while Sid was out cold from the drugs he had ingested. Some think the pair really did have some sort of pact that really went awry, and of course some people really do believe that Sid was solely responsible, whether it was drug-induced psychosis or simply just a troubled young man committing a really horrifying crime. Whatever really happened, it is so tragic that 2 young people ended up losing their lives. In our number 1 spot today, guys, we have one of the most, if not the most famous Hollywood murders there have ever been. The murder of Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate was an actor and model who was praised as one of Hollywood's most promising newcomers. Sharon lived with her husband Roman Polanski at a rental home in Los Angeles, and the two were expecting a baby together as Sharon was 8.5 months pregnant. On August 8, 1969, Sharon was having some friends over at her house while Roman was away working in London. Unfortunately, on this night, 5 members of the Manson family, if you can call them that, chose this house to target for their disgusting and evil plans. When these monsters arrived at the house, some of the most horrific acts ensued, which left 5 people, as well as Sharon's unborn child, dead. While I won't go into the details of what happened that night because there really just isn't enough time for me to do the story justice, I will mention that before the murderers left the house, they wrote "pig" on the front door in Sharon's blood. If this wasn't enough, the group of monsters went on to commit 2 more murders the next night on Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. While nothing can truly give justice to the victims, all 5 of the murderers were arrested and sentenced to death, until their sentences were commuted to life in prison after the death penalty was ruled unconstitutional in California. Some of them have died in jail, but some of them are still alive. They have all applied for parole many times, but are denied every time.
Coming up in our number 10 spot, we have Lynn Spears killed someone. Oh lordy, this news was super shocking for me to hear, so brace yourselves. The mom of pop princess Britney Spears apparently killed someone in a car crash. She briefly talked about the horrible incident in her autobiography, but she tries to stay quiet about it for obvious reasons. Apparently she was driving her brother when she ran over young Anthony Winters in 1975 in her hometown of Kentwood, Louisiana. Apparently Lynn was haunted by the accident and was not charged for the crime. The tea of the story is, though, apparently the mother of the boy, Yvonne Winters, has spoken out about this incident and has said that Lynn has never reached out to her to speak about the accident. She's been quoted as saying, "It's been 40-some years ago, but she's never been in touch with me. It was an accident. It was a terrible situation. But it was an accident, and accidents can happen to anyone." If you're enjoying this video so far, smash that like button as it really helps us out. In our number 9 spot, we have Angelina Jolie was in a cult. So, Hollywood cults, we all know about them, or at least we have heard about them. Well, in 1999, actress Angelina Jolie was allegedly caught on tape talking about one of them. A 23-year-old Angelina was secretly recorded in a private convo with some of her friends where she speaks about an initiation process she took part in. She spoke about how the people in the cult are essentially tied up and tortured, and oh yeah, she had to kill a snake as a sacrifice. A sacrifice to whom? We don't know. The devil, perhaps. After the ceremony, Angelina spoke about how she got a tattoo to represent the occasion. Yikes. Honestly, this one doesn't surprise me, as she did once wear her ex-husband's blood around her neck as a necklace, but somehow I can't picture Meryl Streep participating in something like this, so perhaps not all celebs are a part of these cults. In our our number 8 spot, we have Paris Hilton and her sticky fingers. Ooh, this is a juicy one. Hilton Harris, Paris Hilton, allegedly used to have some sticky fingers. Her former bodyguard revealed her dark past to Radar Online, stating that, quote, before she was so well known, Paris used to grab jackets, jewelry, shoes, anything that wasn't nailed to the floor. The heiress allegedly even stole from parties at other celebrities' houses which she attended. Quote, at a party in the Hollywood Hills, she asked me to put a pair of shoes she liked in my jacket and walk out with them. This girl could buy 1,000 pairs of these shoes if she wanted to, so I don't know why she'd steal them. Damn, that seems like a rebellious teen acting out. If this is true, hopefully she has stopped this kind of behavior at this point. In our number 7 spot, we have Bill Murray tried to smuggle an illicit Oh, Bill Murray. In 1970, Bill attempted to smuggle 10 pounds of an illicit, the one that's legal in many states now, if you catch my drift, and was actually arrested on his birthday. Apparently he intended to sell it, which, you know, makes sense. 10 pounds is a lot. He was discovered after apparently joking about it to a passenger next to him on a flight. Probably not in a sober headspace, as that just seems really silly. Apparently he only received probation for the offense. So not necessarily a scary secret, but perhaps it's how you look at it. Arguably, it feels a bit scary that his celebrity status could have helped him escape jail when many have been imprisoned throughout the US for the very same thing. Not to mention, many are still being kept in jail even when the US government is trading a Russian war criminal to free someone who has been imprisoned for the same illicit. Clearly they don't think it's that bad of a crime. Huh. Funny. In our number 6 spot, we have Leighton Meester was born in jail. Yep, this one shocked me too. Leighton Meester, who played the infamous Blair Waldorf in Gossip Girl, was actually born in jail. Her mother was serving time for smuggling when she gave birth to Leighton in 1983. Her mom and her aunt were arrested for smuggling 1,200-pound shipments of an illicit drug out of Jamaica. Her aunt Judy was sentenced to prison as well, but she ended up breaking out and becoming the first woman in the US to get on the US Marshals Most Wanted list. Whoa, that's an intense family history. I hope Leighton writes a biography one day. I so want to read about this. In our number 5 spot, we have Thora Birch came from a family of adult movie stars. Actress Thora Birch, known for Hocus Pocus, Now and Then, and many 90s classics, has a bit of a dark family history. Her parents were adult film stars, and so yes, as you can imagine, she definitely had a less than traditional upbringing. Her parents apparently would insist on being at every performance she did throughout her career. So much so that the crew tended to see them as creepy. Her father, Jack, would give cameramen pointers while Thora would be filming, physical scenes for the movies she was in. Ugh. Her father also apparently threatened to kill one of the assistant directors on set. Yikes. Well, no wonder she has seemingly stepped back from the spotlight over the years. She's still a working actress, just doesn't seem to look for any attention on her. In our number 4 spot, we have Alfred Hitchcock was a stalker. So, apparently one of the most popular directors of all time was a bit of a creepy stalker. He was known for becoming fascinated with beautiful women that he would cast in his films. He used his powerful position in Hollywood to insert control over the women. He was apparently obsessed with his star Tippi Hedren, who he said he would make into a star after seeing her in a soft drink commercial. Very odd. His obsession got out of control when apparently he asked crew members to spy on her during filming breaks. Yikes. I'm so glad Hollywood has been making some serious changes over the last decade. In our number 3 spot, we have Vin Diesel loves D&D. Dungeons and Dragons! Okay, fine. This one isn't scary. I mean, unless you think nerds are scary, but then all I have to say to you is, you're weird. Nerds are the best, and I love that big guy Vin D loves Dungeons and Dragons. I've always wanted to play that game. Apparently he has played the game for over 20 years. He also wrote the foreword to 30 Years of Adventure, a celebration of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, and he also has a podcast dedicated to it. A true fan. Kind of makes him even more awesome in my opinion. In our number 2 spot, we have Frank Sinatra was in cahoots with the Mafia. This is a very interesting one, but apparently iconic Italian-American singer Frank Sinatra may have had some help from the Mafia to secure his place in Hollywood. Allegedly, Frank was believed to have scored the role for the infamous movie From Here to Eternity because of his connections. Many very established actors were up for the role, role, and it was his friend's influence that helped him secure it. He apparently was friendly with a mob boss and Charles Lucky Luciano, so there's also that. Apparently there is ample evidence that he had friends help him out over the years. In our number 1 spot, we have Matthew Broderick killed 2 people. Ferris Bueller himself unfortunately killed 2 people in a car crash. It was 1987. The actor was dating Dirty Dancing star Jennifer Grey at the time, and one day they were driving along a road in Ireland when they collided with a car that had a mother and daughter inside. Matthew had some substantial injuries, but Jennifer had minor injuries, while the mother and daughter unfortunately passed from the incident. Apparently Matthew had been driving in the wrong lane, even though he can't explain why, as he doesn't remember anything from that day.
Number 10. Apocalypse Now Curse. Apocalypse Now is a 1979 epic war film produced and directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Now, the whole production on Apocalypse Now was hell. It really was like an apocalypse. The production was doomed from the beginning, as it took multiple tries before Martin Sheen was hired as the lead, and Coppola was writing the script as he went, which isn't ideal. They shot in a jungle, and it resulted in many crew members catching various illnesses. Martin also suffered in various ways. In an opening scene, his character punches a mirror and rubs the blood on his face in a drunken rage, and this was real and largely prompted by Coppola's psychological manipulation of the actor, telling him, "You're evil, I want all the evil, the violence, the hatred in you to come out." Coppola also kept Martin drunk and locked him in a hotel for 2 days. Other horrible things that happened were monsoons put people in danger, a prop person put actual dead bodies in a group of fake ones, and Martin suffered a heart attack in the jungle. Coppola himself was fraught with stress of the project. By the shoot's end, he lost 100 pounds, had an epileptic seizure, and attempted to end his life multiple times. The project that was projected to be 6 weeks long turned into 16 months. The final film gained critical acclaim, but if I was Coppola, I probably would have given up, as it sounds like such a horrible experience. In fact, it was so bad a documentary on the hellish filming process was released in 1991, titled Heart of Darkness, A Filmmaker's Apocalypse. Number 9. James Dean's Car. When actor James Dean introduced himself to British actor Alec Guinness during an encounter in Hollywood, he asked him to take a look at his car. Alec thought the car appeared sinister and told James, "If you get in that car, you will be found dead in it by this time next week." This happened on September 23rd, 1955, 7 days before James's death, which is just creepy. On September 30th, James and his mechanic set off for a car race when another car driven from the opposite direction crossed into James's lane without seeing him. They crashed and James was pronounced dead on arrival to a local hospital. The mechanic who was with him died in a road accident in 1981 in Germany after surviving several attempts of trying to end his life. After the accident, a famous car enthusiast, George Barris, bought the wreck, which slipped off its trailer and broke a mechanic's leg. George sold some parts to 2 guys who raced each other, and one died instantly and the other was injured. George later sold 2 tires which blew up at the same time, causing the buyer's automobile to go off the road. Later, one thief tried to steal the steering wheel and his arm was ripped open. After that, another man was injured while trying to steal the blood-stained front seat. After lending the rest of the wrecked car to a highway safety exhibit, the garage storing the car went up in flames, destroying everything except the car itself. The second display at a high school ended when the car fell, breaking a student's hip. While being transported, the truck containing the vehicle lost control, causing the driver to fall out and be crushed by the Porsche after it fell off the back. In 1960, when being returned to George Barris in LA, the car mysteriously vanished and has not been seen since, and that sounds like one evil car. Number 8. The Crow Curse. The Crow is a 1994 American Gothic superhero film, and the lead actor, Brandon Lee, was shot and died while filming this film in a horrific accident. But this wasn't the only dangerous accident surrounding the film. In an interview with the AV Club, actor John Polito, who was in the film, described some of the events. "We were shooting at night, and the very first night they were setting up the lights, there was a guy who was driving a cherry picker onto the lot. A cherry picker that you put lights on. And when the cherry picker fell into a gully, we lifted the back of the cherry picker where the guy was lifted up and went right into an electrical pole, and he was electrocuted. And he was near death, all of his organs were burned, and he was about about 26. His wife was pregnant, and it was a bad luck opening to a film. And then the third night when we were shooting, I remember the prop truck caught on fire and nobody knew what that was about. And then we had a hurricane that destroyed parts of street sets. The hurricane was so bad. Of course, we were staying at the hotel Holiday Inn Cape Fear, so that should give you some sense of what the film was going to be like. And that sounds absolutely horrible. Number 7. The Oscar Curse. Winning an Oscar is supposed to be a celebration, but some believe that winning an Oscar significantly drops the popularity of an actor. There are also other beliefs that an actress winning the award is doomed to have a rocky relationship with their partner that would culminate in a divorce or breakup. The theory is only fueled by the fact that over 12 Best Actresses winners, from Sandra Bullock to Reese Witherspoon, Halle Berry, Hilary Swank, and many more, divorced shortly after winning an Oscar. Now, while Lady Gaga didn't pick up the trophy for Best Actress, her Oscar for Best Original Song was followed with the subsequent announcement of her split from her fiancé, which further fueled these rumors. Sounds to me that these men they were with couldn't handle being with a successful woman, but who knows. Number 6. The Exorcist Curse. The Exorcist, which came out in 1973 that told the story of a young girl's possession, is believed to have a curse after 9 people connected to the film died during production. That's not all. The leading ladies, Linda Blair and Ellen Burstyn, sustained major back injuries during the shoot, and what still baffles many is the fact that when the entire film set burned to ashes, the bedroom that was used to film Regan's exorcism was the only part of the set left untouched by the fire, and that is suspicious. Many strange occurrences continue to happen even after the film's release, with one rumor also stating that a church's cross was struck by lightning close to a theater that was screening the movie. Number 5. Superman franchise curse. Another unlucky character is none other than the Man of Steel himself, Superman. Some believe there is a curse associated with the franchise. The first actor to play the character on TV in 1951, George Reeves, saw his character tank after the initial success of The Adventures of Superman. 8 years later, it was ruled that he died by taking his own life, though some may say it may have been due to somebody else. Then Christopher Reeve became a star with the 1978 Superman the movie and remained successful until he was thrown from a horse and paralyzed in 1995, and he died in 2004 at the age of 52. Other actors associated with the franchise, including Margot Kidder, Marlon Brando, and Richard Pryor, are said to have been affected by the curse as well. Number 4. Macbeth Curse. Saying the name of Shakespeare's play Macbeth is said to bring about a curse to any production. Experienced thespians know that you don't call Shakespeare's Macbeth by its proper name, you call it the Scottish play. Actors believe that uttering the title around in a theater brings bad luck, according to the Royal Shakespeare Company. Legend has it that when Shakespeare included real incantations in the play, a coven of witches cursed it. The actor playing Lady Macbeth is said to have died during the first performance, and subsequent performances since then have also had a series of accidents befall on actors. Now, of course, a play like Macbeth is gonna have a history of some troublesome incidents after being performed for 400 years, but if you're a believer in the curse and you accidentally say the name Macbeth, the Royal Shakespeare Company says you must exit the theater, spin around 3 times, spit, curse, and then knock on the theater door to be allowed back in. Now, I take this curse very seriously as it is real, and ask any drama kid in your life. Number 3. The Poltergeist Curse. The Poltergeist is a 1982 horror film, and one thing is for sure, you don't mess with the dead. It is said that the curse was brought upon the movie franchise because of the producer of the movie taunted with the spirits. After about a month of production, Jo Beth Williams found her pictures askew on the wall, then lights flickered on and off on separate occasions, and random fires and accidents were not uncommon. Once the first movie was released, the curse began to take its toll. Dominic Dunne had her life ended by her ex-boyfriend as she was strangled to death. The sequel took away Will Sampson and Julian Beck, who died of stomach cancer and kidney failure. Heather O'Rourke, who played Carol Ann in all 3 Poltergeist movies, died during the 3rd installment from acute bowel obstruction. Aside from untimely deaths, one actor claimed that real skeletons were used as props, a claim that remains unproven, and another is said to have performed an exorcism on set. So, no shocker, it was cursed. Number 2. The 27 Club. Beginning with the deaths of several 27-year-old popular musicians between 1969 and 1971, this cultural phenomenon, which came to be known as the 27 Club, attributes special significance to popular musicians, artists, actors, and other celebrities who died at age 20 27, often as a result of addiction or violent means, or ending their own lives, or transportation-related accidents. One thing's for sure, the number of musicians who died at the age of 27 is definitely far from the norm. Some of the most famous 27 clubbers include Brian Jones, founder and guitarist for the Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, pioneering electric guitarist, singer and songwriter, Kurt Cobain, lead singer and songwriter for Nirvana, and Amy Winehouse, a blues singer and songwriter. Currently, there are 40 recorded members of the 27 Club. And coming in at number 1, The Wizard of Oz Curse. The filming of The Wizard of Oz was a complete nightmare. It said that after bar hopping, the actors who played the Munchkins would make Judy's life miserable by putting their hands under her dress. Then in a scene where Dorothy and her group are skipping down the yellow brick road, some think the dark moving figure hanging from a tree in the background is an actor who ended their life on set. Then, Buddy Ebsen was originally cast in the role of the Tin Man, but he was essentially poisoned by the makeup, which was made of pure aluminum dust. 9 days after filming started, he was hospitalized, sitting under an oxygen tent. Then Margaret Hamilton, who played the Wicked Witch of the West, had to film a scene where the witch disappears in a flash of smoke. The effects crew used real fire for the scene, and she was instructed to exit the stage via trapdoor, but the trapdoor's drop got delayed and the fire started before she had time to exit safely. She suffered severe burns on her face and hand, and her eyelashes and eyebrows on her right eye were completely burned off, and her skin completely burned off of her hand. Also, the executives behind the film kept Judy Garland on a strict diet and forced her to take pep pills to control her appetite. She was meant to stay slim, and producers pressured her to stay in shape for the duration of the film. Judy was also slapped by the director of the film, Victor Fleming. Allegedly, it was because of her inability to complete a scene without giggling. And finally, do you remember the beautiful yet chilling scene of the gang falling asleep while it snows amongst the poppies? Well, the snow was actually just chrysotile asbestos, otherwise known as a cancer-causing substance. If anyone in the cast inhaled it, it could increase the risk of several serious diseases, including lung cancer.
Starting us off at number 10 are award shows. And I don't think this is a secret by any means, but maybe not everyone knows that award shows in Hollywood are extremely corrupt. If you want to win an award, maybe best film, best newcomer, best whatever you want, it's not going to be your raw talent and effort that's going to win you the title, it's going to be the amount of ass licking that you can do. For example, back in 1968, everyone thought that the Golden Globes were chosen by a poll of correspondents, but then the Federal Communications Commission outed them and said it was actually based on internal politicking amongst the board members. Let's just think about it for a second. Back in 1981, Pia Zadora won Best Newcomer for the movie Butterfly. Who the hell is she, and what even was that movie? No one remembers because it wasn't a good performance, but why did she win, you may be wondering? Because her husband paid off members of the Hollywood Foreign Press Association. It's actually been publicized that groups, individuals, and board members are corrupt. They accept gifts, holidays, money, favors, you name it, in exchange for nominations and wins. So it's not that Leonardo DiCaprio took that long to win Best Actor, he probably just refused to participate in all the corruption. And this isn't even the tip of the iceberg. I haven't even spoken about racism and unfair representation within nominees. But that's gonna be a long video and I don't have time.
In our 9th spot, we have Charles Harrelson. Now, you may be like, who is Charles Harrison? The name doesn't really ring a bell. Well, he is actually the father of Woody Harrelson. But what a lot of people don't know is that his father was a cold-blooded killer. I know, it came as a big shocker to me too. So Charles Harrelson was an American hitman and organized crime figure. It's said that he was responsible for the deaths of at least 20 people. In 1979, that is when Charles committed his biggest kill of all time. He took out a federal judge by the name of Judge John H. Wood Jr. He was paid $250,000 to kill off this judge. It was because a drug dealer was about to be sentenced by this judge, who was known as Maximum John, because he always gave out really harsh punishments to drug dealers. So he got Charles to knock him off. He then spent his life in solitary confinement until he died. But before his death, Charles said that he was involved in JFK's assassination. Crazy, but I'm just glad that Woody went down a much better path than his father.
At At number 8 we have Keith Richards. So if you live under a rock or are too young like a Gen Z, then you probably won't know who Keith Richards is. Now Keith is an English singer-songwriter who co-founded the Rolling Stones. He was in the rock band as a guitarist, secondary vocalist, and co-principal songwriter, and as a rock star the man did a lot of drugs in his lifetime. But the creepiest, scariest thing he did was revealed in 2007 during an interview for NME magazine. Richards was asked what was the strangest thing he ever snorted, and he replied by saying, "My father." Like, excuse me? He continued on by saying, "I snorted my father. He was cremated and I couldn't resist grinding him up with a little bit of blow. My dad wouldn't have cared. It went down pretty well and I'm still alive." This man snorted his own dad, and I don't really know what to think of that and do with that information. I mean, he is Keith Richards, so I mean, he is a living rock legend, but should we just let him get away with that? I don't know.
Making our way down the list at number 7, we have The Animals. Of course, all movies that feature animals have to have a disclaimer that says no animals were harmed in the making of this film. But most of the time, that's a big lie. Animals often do get injured on set. In the 1939 film Jesse James, there's a scene where a horse runs off a cliff and into a lake. Well, that horse was actually forced to do that and ended up drowning. Of course, that was way back in the day, and there wasn't as many restrictions when using animals in films. But nowadays, it still happens. In 2013, a series of emails got leaked between American Humane Association colleagues. These colleagues were monitoring film sets. One email read that the tiger in Life of Pi almost drowned, but he went on saying that he just downplayed the incident. Then it said that 27 animals died on the set of The Hobbit: An Unexpected Journey. Dozens of marine life were killed during Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl, and 4 horses died during the production of HBO's Luck. These are just some examples. Films legally have to have that disclaimer on their films, but it doesn't mean that it's true.
Coming in at number 6 is the Mafia. Now apparently Hollywood has huge ties with the Mafia, which is shocking, but as the series progresses, it's not really that shocking at all. Now, the Mafia seems to have their claws in literally everything. Not even art is safe anymore. Nothing is sacred. Now apparently this mobster called Mickey Cohen ran the Hollywood underworld in the 50s, and so a lot of crime units would invest money in certain films to make their dirty money clean. That, my friend, is good old-fashioned Hollywood case of money laundering. Everyone kind of wins if you think about it. A movie gets the funding that it needs, and the bad guys get away with their crimes while remaining rich. Who said Hollywood had morals anyway? They don't. Actors like Leonardo DiCaprio, Christian Bale, and Casey Affleck have all been suspected of money laundering as well. Just when you thought they were safe, they weren't.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with Prison Life. Some of your favorite Hollywood stars might have had a life of crime before becoming famous actors. Now, some of these came as a huge surprise to me. For example, Mark Wahlberg. In 1988, when Mark was 16 years old, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison after assaulting 2 Vietnamese men. On that day, he got in a fight with the men, yelling racial slurs at them before knocking one of the men unconscious with a stick, and then he punched the other. It was said that these offenses were unprovoked. But in 2014, he met with the victim, his wife, and his daughter and apologized for his past acts. He also released a statement saying that he isn't trying to cover up his past. Instead, he wants people to remember it, to show them how everyone is capable of turning their lives around. Then we have Tim Allen. Before Tim Allen was the star of Home Improvement and Pixar's classic family-friendly movie Toy Story, Allen actually spent time behind bars. In 1978, Allen was arrested for attempting to traffic more than 650 grams of coke. Now, he actually would have served a lifetime in prison, but he avoided this by giving police information about other dealers. Tim Allen, though, who would have thought? Certainly not me. He seems so innocent, but he's not.
Filling at number 4 slot is Oscarexia. I don't even need to get into the fact that society, and especially Hollywood, has not only set such a high, unattainable standard for women and their bodies, but it's a vicious cycle since the women in Hollywood don't even have those bodies. They're either starving themselves for it or are getting heavily photoshopped with or without their consent. For example, back in 2013, right before the Oscars, Jennifer Lawrence admitted she had been starving all day and was very, very hungry. Naomi Watts further
confirmed that when she dubbed the whole thing Oscarexia, which means starving yourself throughout award season because you know your body's going to be scrutinized by literally everybody. Actress Eden Sher brought up this treatment called slim wrapping that they do before award shows as well. Basically, a technician wraps your body fully, and I mean toes, neck, wrist, everything, in 15 to 20 tight ace bandages that have this cloudy mineral solution on them. Then you're meant to jump on a trampoline for 50 minutes, and that's meant to make you lose weight. It's simply ridiculous and unattainable. Not even the women Hollywood are trying to sell to us that have those bodies have those bodies. It makes sense. Listen to it again.
In our third spot, we have the stuntman. Being a stuntman would be pretty cool, except for the fact that it's a very dangerous job, and they often get badly injured or die during films. First off, the highest paid stunt doubles make about $250,000 a year. Meanwhile, the actors get millions per movie, and they're the ones risking life and limb. It's sad, but there have been tons of on-set deaths over the years. In Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Daniel Radcliffe's stunt double got hit by a stage explosion. He was taken to the hospital and suffered an irreversible neck break. Now his arms and both of his legs are fully paralyzed. A stuntman in the Avengers had a chunk of his scalp torn off, and Bruce Willis's stunt double fell 25 feet during a stunt. Then just a couple of years ago on set of Deadpool 2, a stunt double died after being in a car crash on set. But you hardly hear about these stories in the media, which is so sad.
Now at number 2 is Jack Nicholson. This one is wild, and considering how big of a star Jack Nicholson is, I'm like, how is this not big in news? So Jack grew up in Neptune City, New Jersey, where he lived with his sisters June and Lorraine and their parents. But in 1974, Time magazine did a lot of digging and found out Jack's sister June was actually his mother, not his sister. Mind blown. Unless everybody knows this and I'm the only one that doesn't know this. June was only 17 years old when she became pregnant, and she wasn't married, so her parents agreed to raise the child as their own, with June and Lorraine acting like his older sisters. So his parents were actually his grandparents, and his sister Lorraine was his aunt. Now in regards to his dad, his biographer is guessing it was most likely June's manager, not her actual husband. Other sources claim June didn't even know who his dad was. By the time Jack found this all out, his mum June and his grandma had already died. The actor claimed the reveal wasn't as traumatizing as people could have thought, but I would be pissed to know my real mum died without ever telling me the truth about that. I'm pissed. I'm not even Jack Nicholson.
And in our number 1 spot, we have the Black Dahlia. The murder of aspiring American actress Elizabeth Short is now said to be Hollywood's most famous unsolved murder. The Black Dahlia is the nickname given to Elizabeth Short after her death on January 15, 1947. She was found dead in a vacant parking lot. Her body had been cut completely in half and drained of blood. The killer was never found or caught. Of course, over the years people have confessed to the murder, but still no one has ever been arrested for it. That's what makes it such a big and scary Hollywood secret. Everyone wants to know what really happened to her and why. Starting off this countdown, we have the divas. Sometimes when you're rich and famous and used to getting pampered, it all goes to your head. You start off as someone who would do anything to get a role in a big film. But once you're already up there, you stop trying and maybe develop a bit of a diva attitude. Now, there are several celebrities that are known for being divas, and as a result, no one really wants to work with them anymore. They ruined their reputation. First off, we have Katherine Heigl. Apparently, she's one of the most hated actors in Hollywood. So for starters, on set she has complained about wardrobe issues, she has refused to get out of her trailer to film, and apparently she questions the script every single day on set. Then in 2008, she said she didn't want her Emmy nomination for her role in Grey's Anatomy because she felt like the writing on the show was bad. Another one that shocked me is Ben Stiller. Oh, I love him, but apparently he's whiny, demanding, and terrible to work with. And then Julia Roberts in the 90s movie Hook was also a diva, and the director, Steven Spielberg, even named her Tinkerhell. She played Tinkerbell, so Tinkerhell. It's funny. Good job, Steven.
Coming in at number 9 is discrimination. Now this one is no secret by any means. It's been given a lot of media attention in recent years, but that doesn't make it any less scary. Take this in. In the history of the Academy Awards, only one woman has ever won for directing, and that was Catherine Bigelow for The Hurt Locker back in 2008. Still, that happened over 12 years ago. Surely we've progressed forward as a society and industry that we aren't still that sexist. And sexism and gender equality isn't the only form of discrimination the industry has. There's also huge discrimination against people of color. Only one African American in the history of the Academy Awards has won an award, and that was Jordan Peele for Get Out. That award alone has only ever nominated 5 women and 5 African Americans. It's shocking. And it's good to note that I hope people realize that including black nominees doesn't necessarily mean they've solved diversity. What about South Asian nominees, East Asian, Latin, I could go on. Back in 2016, 96% of decision makers in Hollywood were white and 87% of them were male. Forget winning awards, even roles in movies lack so much diversity. The majority of roles and lines are given to white people and mostly just men. In 2016, only 31.4% of speaking characters were women. This is such a problem in the industry, and I don't think people realize how serious it truly is.
Moving on to number 8, we have Elijah Wood. Several years before the Me Too movement exposed big Hollywood names, Elijah Wood actually came out and addressed Hollywood's predatory problems, especially towards young stars. He exposed specifics of Harvey Weinstein and other big Hollywood stars. He also said that as a child he was never allowed to go to Hollywood parties because people of power would take advantage of the young stars there. He said, and I quote, "If you're innocent, you have very little knowledge of the world and you want to succeed. People with parasitic interests will see you as their prey. What upsets me about these situations is that the victims can't speak as loudly as the people in power." But no one listened to him. He tried to expose them and stop these disgusting things from happening. Instead, he got boycotted by major studios because of this. Like, hello, he tried to warn everyone and make a change, and he got in trouble for it? It wasn't until years later that Weinstein and everyone else got exposed and cancelled.
Filling at number 7 slot is Charlize Theron, who has the same birthday as me, so I just love her, and yes, I found that out when I googled celebrities with the same birthday as me when I was like 12. Now this South African beauty is known for her versatile acting with roles in movies like Monster, Hancock, Mad Max, Fury Road, and more. But her backstory in early life is a lot darker than people know. She grew up near Johannesburg with her mum Gerda and her dad Charles. Her childhood was rough because her dad was a huge alcoholic and would threaten Gerda and Charlize whenever he was under the influence. Charles wouldn't hurt her, but he would physically attack her mum. One night in June of 1991, he got angry and fired shots at both of them. During that altercation, Gerda ran and grabbed her own handgun that she had kept hidden in case of an incident like this and shot back at him. Her shots killed him while Charlize watched it all happen at the tender age of 16. Thankfully, it was looked at as self-defense and Gerda never faced any charges. This one was kept so under wraps and it was done so well. I've seen so many of her interviews and movies and never once have I heard about this.
Making our way down the list, number 6, we have the publicity stunts. I mean, there's no shocker here. If you want to get the public's attention back on you, all you gotta do is something extravagant. Maybe dye your hair, get the paparazzi to take an embarrassing photo of you, or in this case, date and break up with another big star. Stars do this all the time. They will get together just to promote their new movie or show or song together and then break up at a time that's convenient for them. This attracts a lot of attention and the movies or shows or whatever fare way better. For example, people think Kim Kardashian's marriage with Chris Humphries was just all a sham. Or Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn. I didn't even know they dated. That for sure was a publicity stunt. No offense, but how does Jen go from Brad Pitt to Vince Vaughn? Doesn't make sense. Another example would be how Anna Faris and Chris Pratt broke up just a month before her book launched. Impeccable timing. Now, what's scary is how half the time these celebs have no say in this. They're forced into doing whatever their managers think is best for them, even if that means dating someone they have no interest in. They literally get stripped from their own free will.
Coming in at number 5 are child stars. Honestly, this is sad because there's only a handful of child actors that didn't burn out or just have their career die the second they stop being cute. Having that much attention on you, that much responsibility and fame at such a young age really messes up your your psyche. Child actor Martha Plimpton made her film debut at 11 years old and said when children's lives become all about external validation, that can set them up horribly. Because what's adorable when you're 12 isn't when you're 25, which is very accurate. She went on to say when you stop getting calls about roles and auditions, you start thinking how you can replicate that high, and so you do everything you can to stay in the spotlight. That may explain child star Amanda Bynes' behavior over the past few years, Lindsay Lohan's, Justin Bieber, even Miley Cyrus when she went through that whole phase. If anything, the only unproblematic child stars I can think of are the Sprouse twins or the Olsen twins. I mean, yes, they're a bit coked up and all, but other than that, they seem fine. What is it with twins and being fine? It makes sense that these stars try to get attention any way they can. Child stars are exploited as soon as you put them in the spotlight, whether they're being treated well or not. A brain that young just isn't able to cope with that much attention, and it shouldn't be. So I feel like child stars should definitely just not be a thing. Stop it, you greedy parents.
In our fourth spot, we have the murderers. Some of your favorite Hollywood stars might just be cold-blooded killers, which is spooky when you think about it. Here are some famous actors that have sadly taken the lives of others. First off, we have Matthew Broderick. On August 5th, 1987, Broderick crossed into the wrong lane and collided head-on with another car. The two women inside the other car were killed instantly. In 2015, Caitlyn Jenner rear-ended a car, which got sent into oncoming traffic. The driver was struck by another car and died. Then we have Phil Lewis, or as we all know him, Mr. Mosby from Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Well, before his role, he struck a car while drunk driving and killed the other driver. He was convicted of manslaughter and driving under the influence and sentenced to 5 years in prison. Who would have known? But I'm sure all these actors feel super guilty for taking someone's life.
Filling at number 3 slot are writers. It's always actors and directors getting the credit for everything, and yes, admittedly they play a massive role in all of it, but there would be nothing to direct or bring to life without the writers. Writers in the industry have been undervalued and underpaid for decades. It's so bad that since 1960 the Writers Guild of America has walked off the job 6 times just to get studios to renegotiate writers' pay, but they claim a film hasn't made any money when it has. That's what Paramount did with the 1988 film Coming to America, which made $288 million at the box office. Studios do this so they don't have to pay their writers net profit, so the writer of that film, Art Buchwald, sued Paramount and won. He got $900,000 in settlements. Mel Gibson, who directed The Passion of the Christ, withheld $75,000 from screenwriter Benedict Fitzgerald, and thus he was credited as co-writer. I could go on, but the point is that there are way too many people in the industry that don't get treated right. That's all I'm gonna say.
Coming in at number 2, we have Natalie Wood. On November 29th, 1981, 43-year-old actress Natalie Wood was found dead floating face down in the Pacific Ocean. She was wearing just her nightgown and socks. So a couple days prior, Natalie, her husband Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and yacht captain Dennis Davern headed out on a yacht. Little did she know that she would not return home. The thing is, no one knows what really happened to her. Some say she slipped off the deck and fell into the water, while others are convinced that Wagner or Walken have something to do with it, or they at least know what happened. One theory is that Natalie and Christopher were having an affair. Wagner found out about it, got mad, and pushed her off the yacht. Wagner seems to be the prime suspect, but many people think that Walken knows exactly what happened. I mean, he barely even talked about the case, and on the rare occasion that he did, he would call it an accident. And he was absent from the documentary about her. I mean, he was on the boat. He should have been interviewed for the documentary. I don't know, I'm getting the vibe that he knows what happened and feels guilty about it.
And finally, at number 1 is Scotty Bowers. Now, this infamous gay US Marine worked as a Hollywood pimp from the 40s to the 80s, and apparently this man would set up all the Hollywood stars with whoever they wanted. Being heterosexual was all you could be back then in the public eye, but Scotty would let the actors choose whichever sex they wanted to be with, and apparently had a menage a trois with Lana Turner and Ava Gardner. Scotty was working as a gas station attendant at a gas station close to all the Hollywood studio lots back in the day. He got his start sleeping with actor Walter Pidgeon, who then spread word about him and the money started rolling in. Scotty then expanded it to a trailer with beds and glory holes and so on, and he apparently set up Katharine Hepburn with 150 gorgeous brunette women. Studios and agents pressured all their talent to be straight, that what other outlet did they have? Rock Hudson was literally forced to marry his lesbian secretary Phyllis Gates. Apparently Bowers slept with so many stars but had never seen any of their movies. He even had his own wife Betty sexy and a daughter, but was so busy in the brothel he would only sleep at home a few times a year. Eventually the petrol pump slash brothel became way too well known, which meant a police raid could have occurred and people could have been arrested. A documentary about him came out in 2017 and Dylan McDermott even portrayed him in the 2020 miniseries Hollywood. Now that's something I gotta see.
Number 10. John Travolta. John Travolta is an American actor. He came to public attention during the 1970s, appearing on the television sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter, and starring in the box office success Carrie. He has many accolades as he's won a Golden Globe Award and been nominated for 6, been nominated for 2 Academy Awards, and has a Primetime Emmy Award. He's best known for his roles in Grease, Pulp Fiction, and Saturday Night Lights. This photo, dated over 150 years ago, surfaced at an online auction a few years ago with an asking price of around $50,000. Notice anything? It looks exactly like John. The seller, a woman identifying as Fawn, was surprised by the commotion it caused as potential buyers were surprised by its resemblance to John. Fawn said most people were curious or just thought the photo was fake or that I was weird. It's a really cool photograph, but I never thought it would cause this sort of hoopla funny. It truly does look like him though, you can't deny it. Number 9. Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage is an American actor and film producer who is the recipient of various accolades, including an Academy Award, a Screen Actors Guild Award, and a Golden Globe Award. He's best known for his films Ghost Rider, National Treasure, and Con Air. This photo of an unnamed Tennessee man taken during the Civil War looks exactly like Nicolas Cage. A lot. You can't tell me that's not Nicolas Cage. The seller, who has put the image at a starting price at $1 million, says the photo is 100% genuine and was taken of a man who lived in Bristol, Tennessee around the time of the Civil War. These two men look so much alike that the internet community was convinced that Nicolas may actually be an immortal vampire. He heard about this accusation and addressed the issue in a David Letterman interview saying, "Now look, I don't drink blood, and the last time I looked in the mirror I had a reflection, so I'm not going with his vampire theory." Now, I'm not sure if he's telling the truth though, I definitely think he's a vampire. Number 8. Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin is an American actor, comedian, and producer. He's best known for his roles in 30 Rock, Beetlejuice, and My Sister's Keeper. Alex looks very similar to the 13th President of the United States, Millard Fillmore. They also share many similarities as they were both born in New York to affluent, well-connected families. The difference between them? Oh, about 160 years. Millard was the 13th President of the United States, serving from 1850 to 1853, the last to be a member of the Whig Party while in the White House. A former member of U.S. House of Representatives from upstate New York, Millard was elected as the 12th Vice President in 1848 and succeeded to the presidency in July 1950 upon the death of U.S. President Zachary Taylor. Now, was Alec the president in past life? No one knows except for him. Number 7. Orlando Bloom. Orlando Bloom is an English actor. He made his breakthrough in the Lord of the Rings film series, The Fellowship of the Ring. He's best known for his roles in Carnival Row and the Pirates of the Caribbean films. He has a very strong resemblance to Nicolae Grigorescu, who was an influential 19th century Romanian painter. Nicolae was one of the founders of modern Romanian painting. He was born in 1838 and passed away in 1907. Between 1856 and 1857, he painted the Church of the Zamfira Monastery, Prahova County, and in 1861 the Church of the Agapia Monastery. Seems like in this life, Orlando wanted to be more in front of the camera and be the art instead of creating it like he did in the 1800s, but you can't deny that these two look extremely similar. Number 6. Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence is an actress who was the world's highest paid actress in 2015 and 2016. She appeared in Time's 100 Most Influential People in the World list in 2013 and on the Forbes Celebrity 100 list from 2013 to 2016. She has many accolades including an Oscar, 3 Golden Globe Awards, 6 People's Choice Awards, and 7 MTV Movie Awards. She's best known for her roles in Silver Linings Playbook, Don't Look Up, and the Hunger Games films. pounds. Now, Jennifer looks very similar to famous Egyptian actress Zubaida Thawar. Zubaida was an Egyptian film, stage, and television actress who was known for the most beautiful eyes in classic Egyptian cinema. She was known for movies such as The Guilty, The Other Man, and There Is a Man in Our House. With both of them being famous actresses, I can totally see them being the same person. Number 5. Jimmy Fallon. Jimmy Fallon is an American comedian, television host, actor, writer, and singer. He's best known for his work in television, and his breakthrough came during his tenure as a cast member on the NBC sketch comedy series Saturday Night Live from 1998 to 2004. He then became the host of the late night talk show Late Night with Jimmy Fallon from 2009 to 2014, and became the anchor of The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon following his departure from late night. In addition to his television work, he has released 2 comedy albums and 7 books, mainly aimed at children. Now, Jimmy looks exactly like Mahir Chiran. If I were to put a mustache on Jimmy, they would be the exact same. Mahir was a Turkish Marxist-Leninist revolutionary who was born in 1946 and was executed in 1972. Jimmy Fallon was born in 1974, with a 2-year difference between the two. Think about it. Could it be a coincidence? Maybe, but it could also be reincarnation. Couldn't it? I think so. Number 4. Peter Dinklage. Peter Dinklage is an American film, television, and stage actor. He received international recognition for being on the HBO television series Game of Thrones. Due to this, he won the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series, a record of 4 times. He also received a Golden Globe Award in 2011 and a Screen Actors Guild Award in 2020 for the role. Now, Peter has a common form of dwarfism known as achondroplasia, as he stands 4 feet and 5 inches tall, and due to this he has used his celebrity status to raise social awareness. Now, it seems like Peter looks exactly like this man from this painting, the portrait of Sebastian de Mora. The painting is by Diego Velázquez of Sebastian de Mora, a court dwarf and jester at the court of Philip IV of Spain. It was painted around 1644 and is now in the Prado in Madrid. They look exactly the same, but the fact that they both have dwarfism is crazy to me. They are truly the same person. Number 3. Conan O'Brien. Conan O'Brien is an American television host, comedian, writer, and producer. He's best known for having hosted late night talk shows for almost 28 years, beginning with The Late Night Show with Conan O'Brien and The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien on the NBC television network and Conan on the cable channel TBS. Now, before his hosting career, he was a writer for the NBC sketch comedy series Saturday Night Live from 1988 to 1991 and the Fox animated sitcom The Simpsons from 1991 to 1993. He has also been the host of the podcast series Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend since 2018 and is expected to launch a new show on HBO Max. He looks exactly like Marshall H. Twitchell in this photo. Marshall was born in 1840 and passed away in 1905. He was a teacher, officer in the Union Army, and a businessman. Originally from Vermont, he became a prominent political figure in Louisiana's post-war Reconstruction, including 2 terms as a Republican member of the Louisiana State Senate. After the war, he returned north, served as a diplomat in Canada, and wrote a memoir. I truly think this was Conan in a past life. Number 2. Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is an American businessman and internet entrepreneur. He's known for co-founding the social media website Facebook and its parent company Meta Platforms, which he is the chairman, chief executive officer, and controlling shareholder. In 2007, at age 23, he became the world's youngest self-made billionaire. He has used his funds to organize multiple charities, including the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. Since 2008, Time magazine has named Mark among the 100 most influential people in the world as a part of its Person of the Year award. In the Forbes 400 list of wealthiest Americans in 2022, he was ranked 11th with a wealth of $57.7 billion. As of February 2023, his net worth was $68.6 billion, according to the Forbes Real-Time Billionaires, making him the 16th richest person in the world. Now, with all of this money, is it possible that he could time travel? Yes, 100%. And he looks exactly like Philip IV, also called the Planet King. He was the King of Spain from 1621 to his death in 1640, and he's remembered for his patronage of the arts. Why not go from being a king of a country to a king of the internet and metaverse? This seems like something Mark would do. And coming in at number 1 is Adam Schulman and Anne Hathaway. Adam Schulman is an actor and producer known for Seesaw Monster, The Shower, and Song 1. He married his wife Anne Hathaway in 2012. Now Anne is an American actress and is the recipient of various accolades, including an Academy Award, a Golden Globe Award, and a Primetime Emmy Award. She was among the world's highest paid actresses in 2015 and is best known for her roles in The Devil Wears Prada, Les Miserables, and The Princess Diaries. Now, does the name Anne Hathaway sound familiar? Everyone's heard of William Shakespeare. What you probably don't know about the famous English playwright is that he had a wife named Anne Hathaway. But that's not the scary part. Adam looks exactly like William Shakespeare. Perhaps him and his wife came back for some unfinished business and to provide the world with more art. Everyone on the internet believes this, as people say they came back for each other, eternal lovers, and history hath a way of repeating itself. Another wrote, immortals must hate all of us for exposing them online, lol, and one fan claimed Shakespeare made a deal with his wife, I get to be famous in this life and you get to be famous in the next. I truly believe this, the resemblance is uncanny.
Starting us off at number 10 is Christian Brando. I always get so excited when I talk about anything Marlon Brando related just because he was so hot and such an amazing actor. I would definitely have been a fangirl, groupie, you know what I mean? But this story is not nearly as happy as I sound right now. So Christian was Marlon's only child with Anna Kashfi, but he had 10 other half-siblings. Christian's upbringing was rough. He was bounced between his mum and dad over a 12-year custody battle. Marlon finally won it by the time Christian was 13, but by then he already called his son a basket case of emotional disorder. In May of 1990, Cheyenne, one of Marlon's kids, was at his house in Beverly Hills visiting her parents. Christian was there as well, and this was a sibling he had had a lot of interactions with growing up, so he was close to Cheyenne. She had been dating Dag Drollett for 4 years at the time and was 8 months pregnant with his child. On the fateful night in question, Christian and Cheyenne went out for dinner at Musso and Frank Grill, where she revealed that Dag was physically abusive. Later that night, Christian was drunk and confronted Dag and then shot a gun at him. Not trying to kill him, just trying to scare him, which I don't get. How do you shoot someone and be like, oh, just kidding, don't hit my sister again? Either way, the two got into a fight over the gun and it accidentally went off, killing Dag. It was found out later that Cheyenne had major mental health issues and was most likely lying about getting beaten by Dag. Brando was charged with murder but not convicted since Cheyenne could not show up as a witness since Marlon had her admitted to a psychiatric hospital. He later pled guilty to manslaughter and went to jail for 5 years. Cheyenne, on the other hand, tried killing herself twice during the trial and eventually killed herself a year before he got out of prison after losing custody of her own son. Damn, the Brandos have baggage. Also, disclaimer, is it Cheyenne or Cheyenne, people? Somebody tell me. Coming in at number 9 is Lana Clarkson. Now, Lana wasn't a super well-known actress by any means, but she had been in a few films like Barbarian Queen, The Haunting of Morella, Vice Girls, etc. She also volunteered every week to help the AIDS and HIV cause, which kind of helps illustrate what kind of person she was. In February of 2003, Lana was at record producer Phil Spector's house in California. His driver was waiting in the car outside, and early in the morning he heard a gunshot and then saw Phil leaving from the back door with a gun. He got in the car and said, I think I just shot her. Yeah, I think you did, mate. Phil was adamant on the fact that her death was an accidental suicide and that she was giving the gun a kiss when it just went off. And I mean, her wounds do corroborate the story. She was shot in the mouth. Forensics couldn't find Phil's prints on the gun anywhere, but he had had a history of doing this. There had been 4 previous accounts of him pulling a gun on women he had been interested in after they had rejected him. The first murder trial was a mistrial since it was a hung jury. The second trial tried him on second-degree murder, and this time he was found guilty and sent to jail. Also, this guy looks like a freaking creep. At number 8, we have O.J. Simpson. I feel like it was really no surprise that O.J. was going to be on this list. Now, O.J. was a huge football star back in the day and was tried for the murders of his wife Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman. Friend. Could be lover, we're not sure. Now in June of 1994, both people were found stabbed to death outside Nicole's home, and OJ was the main suspect. OJ was supposedly not in town when the murder took place, but eyewitnesses saw him speeding in his car away from the crime scene. The two had a tumultuous relationship, and Nicole had written in her diary that he was abusive and that she was scared he was gonna kill her one day. OJ refused to turn himself in and was the subject of a high-speed police car chase. Ultimately, despite the stack of evidence against him, his lawyers were God-sent and twisted the case in such a way using race and other factors to get a not guilty conviction. Even though I feel like low-key everyone knows that OJ did it. Producer Chris, do you think OJ did it?
Well, yeah.
You know, it's obvious. People come out the womb knowing he did it. Filling our number 7 slot is Phil Rudd, who I thought was the father of Paul Rudd, but is not. So do not make the same mistake I did. Now if you're a big fan of rock music, then this man needs no introduction, but if you aren't, Phil Rudd is a drummer in a little known band called AC/DC. And yes, I know rock stars live a hard, fast life filled with drugs and groupies and little mental stability, I get that. But Phil went a bit too far. In 2010 he was convicted of having 25 grams of weed on his boat, but later had that squashed so he could go on tour with the band. But that's not even the bad bit, that's negligible in comparison to this. So in 2014 he was arrested and charged for attempting to procure a murder, aka hiring a hitman to kill 2 people, as well as possession of meth and weed. Now it's unclear who he was trying to kill, but the murder charge was dropped the following day for an undisclosed reason. Phil then pled guilty to all the other charges and was sentenced to 8 months of house arrest and had to pay a fine of 120,000 New Zealand dollars. Now at number 6 is Josh Duggar. I had never even heard of the show 19 Kids and Counting. I thought John and Kate plus 8 was bad enough. Now Josh was on the reality TV show with his parents and 18 younger siblings. Yes, 18. Their bills must have been hella expensive, and also, oh my god, how can a woman give birth that many times? Imagine sending them off to university, oh my god, the fees! And the show quickly got cancelled in 2015 after allegations surfaced of Josh having molested 5 girls who were not of age when he was about 14 or 15. The worst part was that the girls were actually his own younger sisters. Josh confessed to his parents that he would usually touch their mother asleep, and once when they were awake and they didn't know what to do except tell the church elders. He was forced into doing a bunch of physical labor, but his parents hid what he had done from the public for the most part. I'm sorry, this kid molested others as a teen. I don't think physical labor is gonna make it go away, but whatever. Coming in at number 5 is Phil Hartman. This is the second Phil on this list. The former SNL star joined the show in 1986 and stayed on for a period of 8 seasons because his impressions were that good. He was married twice before marrying model and aspiring actress Bryn Omdahl in 1987. In May the next year, Bryn went for dinner with her friend before coming home. When she got home, Bryn and Phil got into an intense argument, and afterwards he decided to just sleep on it and go to bed. Around 3 AM, Bryn went into their bedroom and shot him in the head, throat and chest, killing him on the spot. Now it's important to know that she had been drinking that night, she was on coke and was also taking Zoloft. She then rushed to her friend Ron's house where she told him everything, and of course he was like, yeah, okay Bryn, go to bed. But then they both drove back to her house and she showed him what had happened. Ron immediately called 911 and the police escorted the couple's children out of the house. By this point, Bryn was super paranoid and had locked herself in the bedroom and later killed herself by shooting herself. Apparently, Bryn had a bit of an anger management problem and the LAPD concluded Phil's murder was caused by their earlier fight. And number 4 is Selena Quintanilla Perez Part 1. The Mexican-American singer needs no introduction whatsoever. Now Selena was a massive star in the 90s and everyone loved her. Well, not everyone. Selena's good friend Yolanda Saldivar was part of her inner circle. You know, she was president of her fan club, she managed Selena's boutiques, and the girls were proper friends. Or so she thought. At the end of 1994, her boutiques weren't doing too well and her employees would regularly complain about Yolanda and how she would just fire people simply because she didn't like them. Even Selena's dad warned her about Yolanda, but she refused to listen because her devotion to Selena was almost obsessive. Fans started calling Selena's dad because they had paid a fee to be a member of the fan club but had gotten nothing in return. Turns out Yolanda had embezzled more than $30,000 in forged checks from the fan club nightclub and the boutiques. The dad obviously confronted her about it and told her to never contact Selena again, but Selena didn't want to stop being friends. Yolanda had so many bank statements and records that Selena needed, so they met up at the end of March 1995. Filling at number 3 slot is Selena Quintanilla Perez Part 2. The girls went to a medical clinic because apparently Yolanda had been assaulted in Mexico. The examination happened as per usual, and then the two went to Yolanda's hotel room at the Days Inn in Corpus Christi. The two got into a fight over the financial papers, and before Selena even knew what was going on, Yolanda had grabbed a gun from her purse and was now pointing it straight at her. When Selena tried to run, she was shot on the right shoulder, causing her to lose a lot of blood. She still somehow ran to the lobby and left a 119-meter trail of blood behind her. All the while, Yolanda was chasing after her, calling her a Selena told the lobby person it was Yolanda who did this, and as she tried to flee, was caught by a responding police officer. She was convicted of first-degree murder and got the maximum sentence of life in prison with possibility of parole after 30 years. Apparently, Selena had bled so much because Yolanda had hit her subclavian artery. Now, number 2 is Marvin Gaye. The infamous singer-songwriter extraordinaire had a tough upbringing. He never really got along with his dad, Marvin Gaye Sr., who was a Christian minister. He regularly beat the kids, and the fact that Marvin Jr. was not only cross-dressing, but gay was a lot for his dad to handle. In April of 1984, Marvin's parents were having an argument about a misplaced insurance policy letter. Marvin Jr. was getting angry at the way his dad was treating his mom, so he told him to leave her alone. Jr. told him that if he had something to say it in person, so Marvin Sr. walked up to his room and started verbally abusing his wife, and then Marvin Jr. got involved. I'm just saying Jr. and Sr. so you know who I'm talking about, you guys. And they started arguing. Junior pushed him and started beating him, and keep in mind the old man had always said if his kids ever dared to hit him, he'd kill the person. So 8 minutes later, Marvin Sr. re-entered Junior's room and shot him directly in the heart. That already killed him, but his dad shot him again and was later arrested. But apparently his siblings believe Marvin's death was a premeditated. Right before he died, he whispered, "I got what I wanted. I couldn't do it myself, so I had him do it. It's good. I ran my race, there's no more left in me." Him being shot put himself out of his misery, brought peace to his mum because now his dad was going to jail, and he got to punish his dad because he's probably going to be in jail for the rest of his life. And finally, at number 1 is Mark Wahlberg, who apparently was a massively racist bully in his teens. In 1986, he was sued along with his 2 friends by the Massachusetts Attorney General for throwing rocks and yelling racial slurs at 3 black kids. Apparently the friends saw the victims walking home from school and shouted, "We don't like black N-word in the neighborhood, so get the F away from the area." The group then shouted, "Kill the N-word, kill the N-word," while throwing rocks at them. Mark was also accused of throwing rocks at random white students as well, and the case was eventually settled with him agreeing not to assault, intimidate, or threaten anyone because of their race. All the while, he was still maintaining his innocence. I'm sorry, who the hell throws rocks at someone because they're a different race? That all happened when he was 14. Now let's move on to when he was 16. In 1988, Mark attacked a Vietnamese man called Tan Lam who was just walking down the street. He called the man Vietnam for hitting him in the head with a 5 feet long stick and knocking him unconscious. And he even told the police he split the guy's head open, but before the police even caught up to him, he ran into another Vietnamese man and punched him in the eye and tackled him to the ground. Like, what is wrong with you, bro? The man ended up becoming permanently blind in that eye, and Mark was arrested for attempted murder and pled guilty to 2 counts of criminal contempt.